Welcome back to the Bluechip Breakdown, Vols fans. I'm your host, Bull. It's time for our thoughts on Day 4 of Fall Camp 2024 with all the news and notes from the insiders. And after watching every single practice clip that's out there, as always, y'all, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Let's start off like we always do with the injury report. And we have several more players that's been added to this list, but most of them are limited. And we'll go through all of those players first. We had Cam Seldon, Mike Matthews, Lance Hurd, Jordan Burns, Jalen McMurray, Dante Thornton, John Campbell, and Andre Carrick. Now, we do have one major injury to Jordan Thomas that's going to put him out for the season. He had a knee injury that did require surgery, so we will not be seeing him, and he was projected to be our starter at the star position. So the biggest question is going to be who will be stepping up in his place, and that segues us into each individual position breakdown. We'll be starting off with the secondary. I think that Boo Carter obviously has to be number one. We talked a little bit about maybe he could end up starting at the star position, and maybe Jordan Thomas moves on over to safety. And I feel pretty confident. Actually, I would say I feel very confident with Boo Carter. It's just all in. Will he be able to pick up what's going on out there on the field as far as the play calls, what he's seeing, on a game in and game out basis? That's going to be the biggest thing. But I would say that he's probably the guy that we are going to be leaning on to be the starter at that position. Outside of him, I would say that we've got Christian Harrison, who's played star, and he's another veteran. I think that he's going to do a really good job right there. So you feel comfortable, in that position with him. But also, we have guys like Christian Charles, who I think could maybe start to get kind of back cross trained because we thought before Jordan Thomas went down that Christian Charles would be getting more of a look at safety. But now maybe he gets more of a look at star. Again, I think that he will be cross trained. I think that we have some underclassmen as well that we could be looking out for. I would say actually Edris Farouk. I would not be surprised to see him get a chance either playing more at safety or getting a pretty strong look at the star position. We also have Marcus Gorey and we have Caleb Beasley. So all those players should have a pretty good opportunity just to kind of show what they can do, and they will get thrown out there. And I mean, in some critical situations. So there will be a very heavy rotation. Also, Will Brooks, who we trust a lot more playing at star than we do at safety. Yes, the defensive scheme, or someone like the defensive play calls will get changed up some if he's in there. But he's the guy who knows what to do, and we know and we understand, that our secondary coaches want to put the veteran players out there because they understand what to do. But now, I mean, we'll see. Will they throw some younger players out there that could be a little bit more talented? And just in talking about how they looked out there in practice, and I would say not just today, but throughout all of fall camp, I like what I've seen. I think that they've got a different level of hunger to them. They're definitely a lot more athletic than we've seen since Heupel's been up on campus. So I feel fine there with all the secondary pieces. Obviously, you've got two corners that you trust a whole lot. The safety position, maybe in some spots, I feel good because we have good depth. We have players who can play it, I think, at a very high level, but we won't know for sure until those pads really come on and we get into like a live game, scrimmage sort of a situation. Those news and notes are going to be very, very critical. And that's what I'm looking forward to. But I think that we will be okay. Like, this is not something that I would say changes necessarily our overall goals of winning a national title. So you definitely feel good about that. Now, let's talk about our running backs. I have not seen anything from them just as far as the practice clips go. I haven't heard anything about them either. Just really outside of maybe they were doing some one-on-ones going up against the linebackers, but we don't have any concrete details off of who won those reps. But I will say something that I didn't say. I want to say maybe after the first day of fall camp, and that's that Coach Sims sounds like he is emphasizing the pass protection. And I also want to bring this to y'all. I've kind of heard from some parents and things like that, players behind the scenes that, man, Peyton looks really, really good inside of that running back room. So he could be a guy that's going to be ready to rock and roll by week one. Maybe he's going to be the number two running back, the first running back to come off the bench behind Dylan Sampson if Cam Seldon's not ready to go. And I don't think that you put Cam Seldon out there versus UT Chattanooga. I just don't think that you do that. So, for a guy like Cam Seldon, we would say by like week two versus NC State, that could be his coming out party in 2024. Now for the linebacker room, we really did not get to see much from them in today's practice clips, but I love that room. I think from top to bottom, with just so much talent. But obviously with Jordan Burns kind of being banged up this early on, hopefully he can kind of get things figured out to get back out on the field in more of like a full-time capacity, because I feel like maybe not this year, but for sure next season, he's going to be a guy that we're going to be leaning on, but I absolutely love that room. I just think that we've got so many phenomenal athletes, especially Arion Carter, who Coach Inge is calling the cheetah. I think that we've got a few lions and we've also got a cheetah, maybe two cheetahs, because in some of the clips that I did see today, I felt like Jalen Smith has been getting faster. He's been getting more explosive. He did kind of cut on that weight. So we feel good about that room as a whole. I think that we take a huge leap forward from, I would say, since Coach Heupel has been up in Knoxville. I think this will be by far the best linebacker room that we've had. Now let's talk about our wide receiver room. I like what I saw from them today. Some of the insiders just kind of pointed out that, hey, they caught the ball a lot better than they did in yesterday's practice. That's what you would expect. And we touched on that some in the highlights that we put out earlier today, that basically once you kind of put those pads on and you're playing on offense and you're playing out in space where you have to catch the ball and all that type of stuff, you do expect to see a little bit of a lull or maybe like a step back, as opposed to like what it looked like without the pads on. So day two with shells on, just those shoulder pads and helmets, you would expect that, yeah, they should be looking more consistent in catching those footballs. And it does sound like they did. Now, as far as once the, like leg pads come on, should we see a step back? I don't think that we will. Maybe just like a little bit of a taste, but really it's more about those shoulder pads because while they don't necessarily hinder you that much these days, there is an adjustment period. So I feel great about that room as a whole. We talked so much about it. Chris Brazel, we've seen some clips behind the scenes. He's continuing to make big plays and scoring touchdowns. Hopefully guys like Mike Matthews will be able to kind of come back to the forefront. I think that, Chaz Nimrod looked really good. Dante Thornton, he's looked good. Braylon Staley, he's been looking really good. So that's just a very, very deep room. And we're expecting a whole lot from them. Now, for our defensive line, I think that they looked really good, especially in those one-on-ones. Joshua Joseph's going up against Lance Hurd. The way that I hate to say it, but it's just the truth, kind of ragged on him right there. That lets you know how high his ceiling is. Everyone always focuses on just James Pierce solely, but Joshua Joseph is probably going to be the guy that comes in right behind him. And in that Rabbits package, we'll probably see them both, playing on opposite ends. So, the pass rush is going to be absolutely phenomenal. I also think that run support should be crazy. And speaking of James Pierce, what he did to Dane Davis today that we got to see, that should be against the law. Okay. Like that was his criminal. So, he is that guy. He's a stud. Will he be more productive than he was last season? I think that there's a very good chance that he could be. It just really all depends on how much we're rotating guys in, just as far as like those numbers go. But I think that he's going to, just wreak havoc all the time. I don't care if you double team him or not. He's just like on a completely different level. But yeah, I was proud of the entire defensive line, just as far as what I could see today. Obviously, there were a few clips where you didn't absolutely love what you saw going through some of the, like mundane fundamental stuff. And especially with some of these veterans, like that just kind of happens. I've seen that, like you just get tired. I've done this drill, 500,000 times, you know what I mean? So you kind of can get lulled to sleep some, which I'm not trying to make excuses for them, but I'm just kind of pointing out why I feel like that's how things were kind of going for them. Either way, once, they got out there and it was some live reps, you saw that competition kind of step up inside of them. And then, like that fire kind of come out. So I feel fine. Obviously, I feel great about our defensive line. Now, let's talk about the offensive line. There were a few reps that I saw that I really loved, especially coming from Larry Johnson. Just pretty much everything he's done so far, I feel very confident in him. And in all honesty, I have only seen, pretty much what y'all have seen, very, very limited amounts of clips. But I would say that I trust Larry Johnson at this point, maybe more than I do Dane Davis, because I haven't seen any clips where Larry Johnson is just getting dogged out. And also feel like Andre Carrick has been, he's been looking better. It looks like maybe he has kind of cut that weight. I know it's only 4 days in the camp, but he does look like he has kind of slimmed down. He's getting back into shape, which is what we hoped would happen. And he's moving with some pretty good speed. We're still hearing some great things about Jesse Perry, and also Sham Umarov. I like what I saw from Vyson Lang. I thought that he kind of, held his own right there at center going up against some of our vets. So we should be fine on that offensive line. I'm still, I would say that next Friday, whenever we actually scrimmage, that's when we will know. I want to hear some real notes about how did our fronts kind of, fare up against one another, because we do feel like that defensive line is going to be better than the offensive line, but iron sharpens iron, and they should just be getting better. I also like what I saw from guys like Gage Ginther and some of the reps that I got to see him go in. So, yeah, we're going to be just fine. Also, let me say this really quickly. Listen, dude, Jeremiah's Hurd just looks absolutely incredible in his uniform, in his pads. he's the best looking player, I think, on this entire team. And once he kind of figures things out, once the game slows down for him, it'll probably take him, I would say, maybe to like the midway point in the season, maybe even longer, right? But if he can kind of start to pick things up, which I do feel like he will by the end of fall camp, he's another guy. But we're very deep, I feel like, moving forward on the offensive line. And we've talked about that several times. Now, let's talk about our tight ends. I think that that room looked pretty good from what I could see. I mean, obviously, there's several really big bodies. I mean, it's prototype bodies, players that have good speed. I do kind of feel like Holden Stays may have lost a step or two. Now, I'm not going to say that he was ever just like this absolutely, burner or nothing like that, but it does kind of feel like he's lost maybe a step. But that's going to be okay just because if you look at the way that we can spread the entire field out, we've got a lot of dynamic playmakers on the outside that could just kind of, I mean, he might not have to necessarily stretch the field vertically. He could be more of a guy that just kind of gets open, sits it down, and boxes people out, which he can most definitely do. So, I'm confident in that. I think that Miles Kitselman has looked good. Charlie Browder has looked good. And so has Ethan Davis. Just, being bigger, being more physical, which is going to be probably the, primary goal of that room is, hey, like we can all kind of go out and ball and make catches and, run routes. But can you block on a very consistent basis inside of this league? That's going to be huge. I mean, whether it's in pass protection or run blocking, it's always great just to have another player that's kind of a, smaller offensive lineman with a little bit more speed and athleticism that you feel like if you need to can get up to the second level, help on some of those combo blocks, things like that. So I think that we've got a room full of guys right there. Very, very excited about them without question. Now let's talk about our quarterback room. What I saw today, was Nico just looking like he's that guy. You know what I'm saying? He just looked so confident, so poised. And again, he is going up against air, but if you know what to look for, like if you know what to watch for, then you understand where I'm coming from right here. And just the way that he's throwing the ball with a little bit more confidence, it seems like he's more and more confident every single day. I think that that's huge, and that's exactly what you would want and expect. It's very early still in fall camp, but yeah, I think that he's going to have an absolutely incredible year. Just an incredible season. I like what I saw from Gas Demore as well. I mean, he's able to kind of like do those same things. I mean, he's throwing the football, with some velocity. He's getting it there on time. Just very, very accurate. Heard a whole lot of those same sentiments from the insiders as well. But I believe that that's it. Hope that we did not miss out on anybody. But I feel good. I think that day four, obviously, the biggest news is going to be with Jordan Thomas being down. That is huge. But we will be able to overcome that. And now we have a team that's kind of built with the depth that we can do that. That's just so important in football, period. Like you have to be able to overcome those injuries because, again, it's just part of the game. But I feel like we had a really good day four. Just hoping that we can stay healthy, man. I mean, like we just got to keep as many people, away from, having these serious injuries or getting banged up, whatever. We got to keep them off the field as much as we can, while also just getting them some real live reps in a very controlled environment. But that's going to be it for this one, y'all. Thank you so much for sticking all the way to the end. And please make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with your friends, family, and other volunteer fans. We'll see y'all on the next one. Thanks. Peace.